are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.
And we are live. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is September the 19th, 2020. This is The Meta Show. We are the most trusted name in Smug. I'm your host, Brisk Grabal. I'm joined alongside our co-host, the Matani, and we've got an action-packed show for you all this week. There's a ton of stuff to talk about.
We have actually an almost intimidatingly large list here over here on our show notes. It has been a very busy week, not just in terms of us being smug about everything that's happening in the war, and we are going to get to war news and all that. It is a red shirt meta show today. I do not have the energy to be mean because I have all of my energy is going towards kind of maxing and relaxing. Like the bad guys are standing down, they're making excuses. We should probably play the Pro God Legend stands down clip at some point during the show in case there have been people that haven't actually listened to that yet. We will probably find that and shove that in there somewhere. Good stuff. But yeah, it's been an interesting week. We have a lot we're going to go over. There's been Triglavian action going on. There's the latest updates on the bad guys finally moving their stuff. I guess they're still doing move ops in between standing down. I had a soapbox here thing about GigX truthers and Praxis truthers from earlier, a few days ago, but that just doesn't seem like it matters that much now. Why don't we'll just get stuck in with it. Also, by the way, thank you to, I never can pronounce your name right, Sideth, whatever it is that is the right way to say your name, for that sub bomb there. That was super cool. I do appreciate that. So yeah, let's get stuck in. We're gonna have a traditional old school meta show. We don't have any guests. It's just me and Brisk clawing through the news and being smug. So let's do it.
All right, everybody, here we go. We're going to jump right into the Nullsec Power Hour because that's what we got to talk about. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a bunch of war talk, but I think the biggest, obviously the newest war thing that came out this week was the Polygon article. We want to talk about the Polygon article?
God. Yeah, sure. So this war has been, a lot of times in EVE there are wars that immediately make it into what we call the major gaming press, right? The professional games media, so Kotaku or PC Gamer or Polygon, and whenever there's a big fight in EVE or anything that actually, because EVE articles get tons of traffic from non-EVE players because EVE is very exciting, but a lot of people don't actually play it, blah, blah, blah. But this war, because the enemy has been, I guess what was on the far side I called Viggles and Pilly and Viggles or something or other, whatever. The tag team duo has not really done a very good job of actually creating news or big fights or anything because they don't want to commit their shit. So this was the first time 2 months into this war that we actually saw some real mainstream media coverage. And it was interesting because at the time when I was talking to Polygon, I had no idea that what Villy had told Polygon. So they interviewed me, they interviewed Villy. I guess they talked to Matterall as well. I don't really know all the details. And so, there I am, and I'm just yeah, here's what's going on. Here's how the war worked, blah, blah, blah. You can read the article for yourself if you feel like it. And then the thing comes out. And apparently the reason why Villy is so mad at us is because we fired him from Goon Swarm's directorate or something or other. This is the first I'd heard of it. We were all kind of surprised, and this did not go over well because, of course, we have receipts of the fact that Villy was not fired. Anyway, whatever, it doesn't even fucking matter. Who cares if we did fire him? If he's so butt blasted about, I wasn't really appreciated. Yeah, well, if I had known what this motherfucker was like back in the day, things would have been different. Let's just say that we didn't really know the guy very well, and we didn't know that he had this kind of bullshit in him. So that was a surprise. It was kind of a minor controversy. But the main thing that was important was not Villy's lies about, he was fired from the directorate. Not anybody in his coalition or in our coalition gives a shit. Who cares, dude? You're lying, but what a stupid thing to lie about. What matters is that he went full Sir Molly. He went into print and he said in Polygon, the official objective of the Pappy side of the war is to eliminate Goons and the Imperium from the game, to get us to quit playing and that they will not win until we stop being friends with each other and stop playing the game together. So I had hoped. Sorry, I'm not sure whether my mic is being distorted or not.
Yeah, my gain was a little too high. I took care of it. Don't worry.
Okay.
Thank you for all you audiophiles in the audience for being so upset about a little bit of gain. So thank you.
Yeah.
Don't distract us.
So anyway, yeah, like he went full there are no goons, right? He went full Sir Mole. Like the objective of Pappy is to eliminate Goonswarm and friends from the game forever because we are awful people. And we are such awful people that Villy was in a non-invasion pact with us for years, just before this war started, before he and Piggles were planning on backstabbing us. But we're so evil and we need to be removed from the game for the good of the game. And he set it to Polygon, it's in print, and dumbass can't take it back.
And this is what frustrates. I mean, this is the thing. Like, I whatever you want to say, Villy, whatever you want to say, whatever bullshit excuses that you have to come up with to justify the war, that's fine. What I would say, at least at the beginning, is at least be consistent and come up with one story and make it a story that's something that everybody can grab a hold of. If it's just something you're mad because something happened to you 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that's the most egocentric thing I've ever heard, and I thought that was dumb. But let me read you the exact quote that was in the Polygon article that he said. And I think this was probably the absolute worst possible thing he could have said about the war. He says, quote, "When we started this war, we knew that we were fighting this to the end," Villy told Polygon. "For us, this is a war of extermination. This is a war to the death. We are aiming for the removal of Mittani and the Imperium from EVE Online. We are here to purge them." You just lost the war, dude. You just lost the war because you set an impossible to meet victory condition on yourself. How do you expect to be able to do that? I mean, at the end of the day, there is zero chance that this war is going to end with the Imperium dead and everybody destroyed. It's just not going to happen. So
I mean, especially if they keep standing down their fleets when they've got superior numbers, superior forces, and like last night,
but the node wasn't reinforced, right?
Oh, well, here I'm Pro God Legend, and we have 300, 400 more subcaps. Actually, Brisk, while I'm Herfenborfskin, like you dig up that fucking like SoundCloud. I think it's on Reddit. I think we need to get that played. Yeah. So like, just to follow this on, like, so Villy has been on every, like I do one talk show a week, and Villy is like on all of these talk shows that if he can get a spotlight on him, he'll be there. And he tends to hem and haw about the whole there are no goons thing, because Pro God was the one who was all goons are awful people, but the test guys I think realized that they had a nip with us for 2 years, so the whole goons are terrible for the game and we care very deeply about this because we're totally not a bunch of fucking hypocrites. Like whatever, but the fact that he actually put it in print in a place where it cannot be taken back.
Here it is. I got it going.
All right, so guys, this is what happened last night. When we'll be talking about this in a bit. When Pro God, this is the very, very important reasons to stand down. Can you just let me know when you got it playing? I'll shut up.
We'll start playing right now.
Shit, the last couple of nights, and we thought they'd do that again, and they was super hard.
Volume is low because Pro God.
We've got them outformed by a good chunk, but this is just a fucking Fortizar and an unreinforced node, and this is about the worst possible situation we could take this fight, considering we've got our move up in Aquarius in 15 hours. So
15
hours. We're gonna pass. If this were a reinforced node, or if this were next week when we're moved in Aquarius, we'd take this in a fucking heartbeat, but we don't have the right tools for this tonight. We're going to have new doctrines in by next week where we can actually do this, but regular hack doctrines, unreinforced node, spread out between 3 different stagings. This is how you get in a shitty situation. We'll be fully set up for this next week. But we do have goons outformed by a good chunk. In case you haven't noticed, they are starting to switch their timers to USTZ, so the main fights are going to be in USTZ, and we will get properly set up for this by next week, and we should be able to easily dunk. But we've got them outformed by about 400 subcaps and
400 subcaps
cap and Titan fleet as well. But yeah, this is going to get to 4,000 in local on an unreinforced node, and that's just not a setup we want to go after while we're not properly moved. When we're properly moved and we'll be able to properly reinforce for about a 12-16 hour op, fight, then we can take this fight. But all of our stuff is still in fat, so if we need to be streaming shit in, it would get ugly. Hold on. Clear comes. Maybe 1 sec.
And that's it. That's the joke. So
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, really, the node's not reinforced, but we have 400 guys more than they do, so we're not going to take the fight.
It's the dumbest fucking excuse. I mean, like, here's the thing, and I know it's the dumbest fucking excuse, because if ProGod, like, he cowered it down, and that's great. Like, periodically, we all have to stand down. Like, the other day, they had 3,000 people that they heard for 2 days for the 49 hub. We didn't actually stand down. We sent interceptors, we sent sneaky beats, we sent windrunners, we sent a bunch of shit to do harassment bullshit. But sometimes there are fights you can't take. But when you tell your fleet, we outnumber them on every level, we prepared, and they pinged for, like, they didn't ping as much as they did for the 49 fight. I want to not be hyperbolic here. I don't want to like herf too many blurs, because I want people to understand it's a red shirt show today rather than a black shirt show. They had every advantage, and they sent multiple pings across all of their coalitions. I'd say 2 or 3 pings. The moment that they lost an Eagle fleet to Ferox's the night before, so this is 2 days ago, they started pinging for 2345, 2350, or whatever, to get ready to have this fight last night. So they had a full day of prep. They had lots of time for it. They had all of the things that they wanted in advance. And I think one of the reasons why this is sort of like Piggles is like when Killa B docked his faction titans, that was like a big moment in Eve, because there was a recording of Killa B telling everybody to dock up their faction titans, and his reputation was ruined after that. Like, he was Killa Flea from there on. In the case of Piggles here, like that, if he had just told people that they had to stand down because something happened and shit happens and whatever, that would have been very bad still, right? They had all that herf blurf that they'd done. But when he spelled out the balance of forces and said that they had more than us, and the only reason why they didn't go in was doctrines. We have spies. There's no secret about that. If you are a member of Pandemic Horde, if you're a member of any of the Pappy alliances, you know that there was a tremendous amount of controversy that took place the moment that Piggles stood everybody down, because the people that still believe in Piggles and Villy, they might have taken his words at face value. And so our spies were seeing people ask questions like, what do they mean? The doctrines are wrong. We have more forces than them. How are we going to win this if we outnumber them so much? What doctrine do we need? What do we need here to win to actually take these fights?
I mean, what were they in anyway? Weren't they not in Munins? I mean,
they had Munins, Eagles, and Nightmares. And
so what's the issue? I mean,
the issue is that Piggles is a little bitch.
I mean, well, I mean, come on. It's you guys, they've been using Eagle doctrines forever. It's not like, I mean, as I recall, we were in Ferox's, right? I mean, it's
we had really good fleet comps, right? Like we were there to fuck, right? Like we were there to throw down. We knew that they were outnumbering us, and I didn't care, because after sounding the horn in Gundor, like I know that if we take fights, like a couple weeks ago, we went into G Magic, right? We jumped a regional gate, we brought our supers into their space, and we lost, right? Like we had this big ass brawl, and we got our asses kicked, and we didn't care. We took a shot at some of their titans, it didn't work out, whatever, who cares? After that, even though we lost, we had a huge surge in numbers, because people like know that, wow, we are actually going to make some plays here. So we came to that party ready to throw down completely, because I know that, having sounded the horn in Gundor, if we throw down at every opportunity we can, our guys will see that we are legit about this whole like massive space war thing, and that even if we lose 200 dreadnoughts, they will turn into 500 more dreadnoughts, inside of 3 or 4 days, because goons will go, oh my God, this is awesome. But this sort of brings it back to something, and I think that there's more than just making fun of Piggles being a little bitch. Hercules, the leader of AAA, and if you heard this on the fireside, you can tune out because you've already heard the story, but Hercules from AAA had a pretty good analysis that he posted on one of the many Reddit threads about this. Hercules is, of course, not at AAA anymore. He runs for Victrix, who are our cool Stainrus allies. But Hercules was like, well, his theory, mangling it slightly, of why Piggles did stand down, even though they had these forces, is that they know that we will primary by poverty, right? Like if you have a mix of NC Dot, of Test, of Brave, of Evictus, of Tom, Dick, and Harry on the field, if we have a fight and the Imperium loses, these fights are so bloody that we can basically pick who's going to go down with us, right? They have 103 different alliances. We only have like 8 to 11 in the Imperium, depending on whether you count like initiative mercs in terms of part of that, or like who counts as a renter org and who parts like whatever. The point is that Actually, Mercs gets part of the TTC because we share our TTC profits because we're a civilized fucking coalition that don't treat our members like shit. But anyway, the point is that we could delete test shit. We could just primary test and take all their stuff off the field. So I think one of the reasons why you're seeing in these big fights, these guys like Piggles who are standing down when they're commanding horde fleets, when they're commanding all of the combined FC teams, is that they are aware that we can go like, okay, well, even if we are losing this fight, like we are going to delete everything the test has. And I don't want to make a promise here. If you are in Pappy, I don't want to promise you that we're always going to primary test, because I don't want you thinking we're always going to primary test. We're going to look at whoever is going to be the weakest, whoever's FC team is under the most stress. Like if there is a fleet commander from the enemy and we know that guy is like having real trouble, like because his alliance leader treats him like shit or something like that, we will primary in that direction, right? We're going to be taking out the enemy alliance by alliance because we want to maximize the pain. Like you guys have brought, it's interesting. I forgot about this. This came up earlier today. The Casino War, I think, only had about 63,000 pilots in the Money Badger Coalition that were coming at us with their infinite ISK cheats. They don't have their infinite ISK cheats anymore. And in the Casino War, 63,000, something like that, maybe a little more. And now they have 150,000. It's nuts to see these guys bitch out like this after banging their pots and pans and talking about how there are no goons and we're so awful and blah, blah, blah. You know, I didn't expect to be in this position, like to just be kind of like, okay, like we have the ISK. Financially, we're going okay because the Horny Gundor is working really well. These guys keep standing down. They have to put up or shut up. Like they have to actually do something. And now they're going to have to do something in U.S. time zone, right? That's probably one of the bigger changes that has happened in this war. It takes a long time to shift your vulnerabilities in EVE Online. CCP, and I think it's a reasonable change. Like you don't want to do time zone tanking. So CCP added a 30-day timer on changing your Citadel vulnerabilities. And that flipped over for us on September 15th, where most of our Citadels now are smack at midnight Eve. There's a few around the edges that aren't, we're not going to spell out all of our plans or what we're doing with what, but in general, the group on the Pappy side that is going to have to storm the gates of Delve is going to have to do it in the midnight to 1 o'clock Eve midpoint zone for both Sov and Citadels. And their best fleet commanders at that time are like Pilly and Viggles, right? Like, so, okay. And Zero Muskie from Horde, who I just found out existed like 3 days ago when he whelped that, or 2 days ago when he whelped that fucking Eagle fleet. So, you know, it's I wish them the very best of luck in their process of storming Delve. But of course, instead of having a real news about action, like maybe a fight is going to kick off here. I keep checking over here because I hope that something happens. They stood down again this morning. We dropped our Titans on some nerds. This is early. I was asleep and we dropped our Titans on some nerds and they got their dreads together in NPC Delve ready to dread bomb our Titans, which is what you're supposed to do. And Piggles again stood down in shame. You can't make this shit up. That's two situations. If you have 500 dreadnoughts, you throw them at anything, right? Like you throw them at things. Who cares? And I think that one of the reasons also is that one, they know we're going to primary by poverty. Two, they don't really have the ability to resupply their shit. Like when they do a big form up, they're bringing basically what they have, as opposed to with Goons where we're lazy and like we're like, okay, well, we've got 400 people in this capital fleet, but we're going to wait to see whether something kicks off. And because our interior lines of reinforcement are so small that we can go, oh, something's happened. We're going to jump directly into the fight. But whatever they
said it. I mean, he said it in that quote. He said, "Look, we need a week. We need a week to get our doctrines set." I mean, a week is 7 days. That's a long time for you guys to move in a couple hundred ships, a couple thousand ships. If it's only like 2 dudes doing it, yeah, I can understand it's going to take you a week. But one of the benefits we have is, like Minton said, we have interior lines of communication. It's very easy for us to move our stuff around. We move to a new staging with our Titans and it's 2 jumps. It's not hard, and we're ready to go. And when it comes down, I think the other thing that frustrates me about all of this stuff is this whole node reinforcement thing is such a nonsensical argument. It's such a nonsense. You are the attacker.
It's an excuse. It's not a real
argument.
argument.
When you're going to do these things.
He could have reinforced the fucking
node. You put the node requests in.
Yeah.
So why didn't, if you knew you were going to do a 1,500 person fleet, why didn't you put the request in? You knew at least 24 hours in advance. So that's on you. That is bad planning, and you literally just wasted a ton of people's time in the middle of the day when you should have otherwise been doing this, and my phone is ringing because of course it's ringing during the show.
Yes, I will. Don't worry, I'll cover things. Yeah, no, I'll just troll here a little bit in chat. One of the things, this is serious desperation. I had a respect for the initiative, but going on with these guys after Fountain, when they got left to defend themselves, do they think goons are going to hand the mist to rebuild or make them cry? So you can eat my ass and get fucked. Actually, I don't know if that guy is. I'll be nice. I was about to commissar somebody, but I think I partied really hard last night. So the Horn of Goondor shit, like we had basically a drug fueled celebration last night, like late USTZ after these guys stood down. Cause like one of my oldest like space friends from like 2007 came back to the game. So like Fernok Dorn, like super old school goon. And we were all kind of like doing drugs and sending broadcasts of like the wedding story about Remedial's wedding and the whole like the real secret history of the casino war, one of Scion's old posts. It was sort of like a big like history lesson. Like this whole thing has been like a really badass family reunion where you have like all of your old friends coming back from a zillion different eras and just watching all these goons get to hang out with each other and talk and like it's just been a wild party. So yeah, somebody was saying I was looking a little rough around the edges, and it's absolutely true because I was up late doing drugs with the boys like you do. No, not actual drugs. Sorry, I should say. Just the
legal kind.
Yes, the completely legal kind. I don't really know what the circumstances are of that. You know what I mean.
But the point is, I mean, this type of standing down, and the other thing that frustrates me is it seems like they are on such a slow schedule. It's literally one big form up or two big form ups a week. They got their big form up for 49 Tech on Thursday, and they were successful in killing the iHub in 49 Tech. Great. I don't know what that gets you. I mean, we have a Keep Star in that system. You're putting a Fortizar in that system. I'm happy to see you guys jump the regional gate, but in the end, you're moving all your stuff around anyway. So where are you going to put it? Obviously, you're going to the other systems to get in Aquarius range. So, okay. I mean, great. Maybe they give us a hard time for morale posts and morale fights. That to me seemed like nothing more than a morale fight. They were getting tired of us saying they couldn't jump a regional gate, so they did it. Okay. What did it get you? You're not any closer than you were before. And you're not going to take 49 Tech loose right now because we still can get folks in there and it's still in range of things. So we'll see. Maybe it'll take you a little bit longer to get there. Maybe you're going to do something, but they're doing more move-ops. They're doing move-ops right now.
I think they just stood down another fleet. I thought we were going to have a timer, and I think they just fucking stood down again. God damn it.
I mean, how many times are you guys going to move?
All they do is move. All they do is fucking move. Like, I
think like Pickles and Villy have like a fuel cartel going or something like Darkshines did for Init.
Yeah.
You know, how many times can we move and charge you guys a bunch of Vista to sell fuel? One other thing, Vince, before you get in there.
Go for it.
The other thing that frustrates me is all we saw. One of the excuses that they came up with in their rhetorical, let's throw a bowl of spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, this decision of why we're going to war. One of the things that they said was that goons were awful. We were blue balls or hell dunk. That was it. That's the only thing we could do, and that was bad for the game. Now, granted, Villy has changed hell dunk or blue balls into his version, which is only take the fights you can win, but it's the same idea. But they came at us saying that we were bad for the game because of that. Asher makes his good guys post, and one of the things that he said specifically in there about why we are the good guys now, regardless of all the other moral shit, was that we take fights that are marginal, and some groups, like Init, we take fights where we are vastly outnumbered because we think we can still win, and most of the time we pull it off. I don't understand now if part of your reasoning that you tried to sell this war to your people for was these guys only fight when they outnumber us. So now we're only going to fight not only when we outnumber them, but when everything is perfect and there's not a possible. I mean, it's like not only do they have to get the right doctrine, the nodes reinforced, the sun is in the right angle of the sky, the moons in Jupiter are aligned properly, we had a proper augury, and in the bird entrails it said Villy's gonna win. That's the only time that we can take a fight. It's ridiculous. I mean, at the end of the day, you're gonna lose some fights, you're gonna win some fights. You're not gonna change the entire momentum of this war if you lose one big fight. We didn't lose the war when we lost a bunch of carriers in D4K in the beginning. You know, there have been other fights. Both sides have had big fights. Both sides have won big fights. This war is not going to be one of those ones that turns on one big Titan fight or one big super fight and then everybody goes up and goes home. We know that. So just be a little less risk averse. Be a little more willing to take some of these fights. Let's have a good time. And you can throw all of your other nonsense reasons out the window because we know that's all just window dressing because you guys think you have to go through the motions and you're really bad at it.
I think you're right. And the more that I think about it, you know, I see one of the guys here trolling about like init this and init that and like goons and init. Throughout the entire process of this war, I think that the pubbies essentially had a theory of case here. And their theory of case was that essentially because they don't treat their allies well, right? We know this because Vili is providing value from the TTC to Legacy, i.e. he is keeping the ISK and telling Legacy that they have value, i.e. it turns out Legacy are actually test pets, which is yikes. I thought that Legacy was basically a bunch of dudes that like Test was in Legacy and people just like put up with Test because nobody really like wants to be friends with Test. But you know, apparently from even like a power dynamic relationship of who gets the profits from the TTC, Vili isn't distributing that. So that means that Legacy are pets. But you know, it's the damnedest thing when you see Vili and Progod have started this war. They're the biggest, loudest people about it. PanFam is involved too. Like PanFam, of course, they want to kill us, right? Like, why wouldn't you take a shot at us if they could, right? But I believe that their theory of case was they bought into their own bullshit and that they believed that because they treat their allies like shit, that we would treat our allies like shit. And we learned, you know, we've always treated our allies very well because best possible friend, worst possible enemy. If you're on our good side, we try to be the best possible friend because we know that this is important at times like this when you're all in the trenches together. But the enemy genuinely believes that they can create some sort of schism with init, right? And so this entire time they've just been screeching because they think that init is like CO2. And init is nothing like CO2 at all. But they don't really know what to do because they committed to this thing. When we knew that they were going to do this, we withdrew and started going into like fortress mode and like gearing up for our defense and all this stuff. And these guys came in and I think that they expected initiative to leave immediately and like turn traitor, which they wouldn't do because they're not like that. And also we're all in it together. Like last night, init brought ravens and it was like, what, you know, somebody was like, what do we want the init fleet to do? And I'm like, just let init be init. Like I have no Darkshines is here. He's got ravens. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. Like we don't need to micromanage. We don't need to just whatever, like just let them do their thing. Right. And that's awesome to have like an independent special forces group. Cause yeah, the rest of the Imperium is a fucking sledgehammer and init are like our high speed, low drag special teams guys. It's like if Black Ops was an alliance, right? So anyway, they come in, they do this big invasion. They're banging their pots and pans together and going, oh, we took Fountain. Well, we took Fountain back already. And then they're like, oh, well, we glassed it. And they're like, yeah, you blew up some of our keep stars, whatever. We got like 60 more. We just dropped a bunch more. Great. Bring it, bitch. And they didn't even fully glass the thing. And so like their theory of case of like initiative is going to schism off or something or other, that did not happen. They thought that Goonswarm and the rest of the Imperium was like, one of the things I keep seeing from puppies is that Goons are only in it to crab. Like they have genuinely bought into the idea of the Delve Time unit that like all we do is do PvE, which is something that puppies do, right? But Goons have only and always ever done PvE stuff to turn it into war material for these big hell wars. Like these big hell wars are what we do. Like mainly when we're playing Eve, like we're just kind of like counting down the months until, you know, every 3 or 4 years you get a hell war. Every decade you get something as big as apparently something like on the scale of the Great War, and then everybody turns up and is down to fuck, which is where we are today. But I think that basically just the theory of case for this invasion was based upon their own bullshit and what they wanted to believe rather than the facts on the ground. They either didn't listen to their spies or they were just caught with their pants down because we exposed to the world they were going to do this invasion before they were ready to actually figure out what their plans were together and sync things up. So it's a shit show.
And that's the other thing that happened this week. I mean, obviously, we touched on it last week, and Frank did his segment last week. You know, we were able to take back Fountain in 4 days. We cleared out almost every single iHub. There's one iHub, I think, left. We cleared out almost every single iHub, cleared all the TCUs out, cleared the space out. We're clearing structures now. They didn't leave a lot behind, but what they did leave behind, we're going to kill. And we restaged a bunch of ships into NBC Fountain. Why did we do that? Well, I know that for a lot of you guys who don't understand in it and have never been around us, you don't understand that our history was as a nomadic, living out of NPC stations alliance. We went where the fights were. We lived in Curse out of stations. We lived in Syndicate out of stations. We've lived in Delve out of stations. We lived in Queries for a little while. Not out of stations, obviously, because we were down there. But before Fountain and that and the rest, we were a herd group. That's what we did. And that's, I think, one of the things we were trying to do is get people back to that mentality. Because once you become a Sov-holding alliance, it changes how you do things. And that was not something I think a lot of us in it wanted. It was one of those things where it's kind of forced on us because you needed to have rental space. You needed to be able to make ISK that way after the moon mining changes went through. So that kind of changed the tenor of what we did. But in the end, we like to kill things. We like to blow stuff up. So us moving up to NPC Fountain is not us breaking away or somehow otherwise changing. It's not even really, a main staging. We're only moving certain doctrines up there. But all that stuff has been leaked, and you guys are aware of all that stuff. So I'm not telling you anything that isn't public already. And I wouldn't be telling you anything that was super secret anyway, because I'm just a line member. All I know is what they tell me. But the bottom line for me is, we're going to go and we're going to do what we like to do, which is exactly what Mitten says. We like to be the strike force. We like to be the guys that go and we do the fun stuff. We take the fights that nobody thinks are winnable, and we win them. We go and we do crazy things like clearing Fountain out in 4 days after it was taken away from us, because it's funny. And it's something that was fun, and the guys enjoyed it. And frankly, that's about the only Intoses I've ever seen anybody excited to actually do on our side, was because it was just a funny thing that in the span that it took them 2 months to clear the space, and we took it back in 4 days.
Yeah, like here's actually K Color just handed me something. Speaking of initiative, I linked it in chat here, but this is the kind of thing that init pulls off, right? Like an hour ago, there's 117 init up in Oasa blowing up a whole bunch of fraternity work walls and just humiliating these nerds in their back lines, right? Like the main forces of the Imperium. Yeah. Like, so like init is out there doing shit all the time. And, yeah, like we have separate command structures, right? Like init does not live in Delve except when they feel like it, right? And they do their own thing, and they're really good at doing their thing, which is a huge advantage because it's very much like I don't know, hammer and anvil kind of thing. Like Goon Swarm, we're basically a bunch of fat Cheeto stained goons, right? Like we're gonna sit down here and do our thing, and so it's kind of hard. Like we do have SIGs and squads that can do deployments and stuff like that, but init specializes in going to the other side of the galaxy and jumping on these opportunities because the entirety of the enemy forces are right up on our grill. So like their backfields are just wide open. But yeah, I'm cool with it. Like if the enemy wants to spend all their time going like initiative is going to leave the Imperium or is going to backstab us or something, that's great because we know it's not. And then as we're seeing from the enemy's numbers, their numbers are continuing to decline because at a certain level, like their guys are realizing that their leadership has been lying to them the entire time about how the war is going to work, what they can expect, what's going to happen. And eventually that stuff fails. Go ahead.
And that's a great lead in to the next part of this segment, which is the fact that that the legacy guys are constantly getting lied to. So and they're having issues with morale. So there's a morale soda today. They do a State of the Alliance before the next round of move ops, and I'm going to put a link to the Twitch in here.
Oh God!
Now, obviously, the beginning of this you can watch it. It's the typical Pickleman not understanding how to use Twitch and stream, so it's jacked up. But then they fix it. But I pulled a couple of quotes out from this, so you guys can listen to it at your leisure. Don't worry about it now. I'll tell you the quotes that I think. If I were doing a Frank segment today, and I'm sorry guys, we're not doing a Frank segment. We got too much real news to talk about. If I were doing a Frank segment today, I could have a field day with the amount of bullshit that gets spun into this one speech, and then it throws in, and it also highlights something else that I was talking about on Push to Talk earlier that I'll go into on this. Here are some choice Villy quotes from this soda that they did before this move up. Okay, first, just mere months after we started, and we're not there yet, nobody thinks it's an unwinnable battle anymore. Everyone is now on the same page that this is not only a doable thing, but a probable one. No, they're not. No, they're not. We're not sitting here telling you that it's probable that Villy is going to be successful in making Mittani quit the game and destroy the Imperium, because that's what he said they were trying to do. He's on record saying that. That's not probable. That's impossible. That's never going to happen. I don't care if he takes 1 DQ. We don't care if we have to live out of a fucking shoebox in Jeddah. Goons are not going anywhere. Imperium's not going anywhere.
Especially after like the dumbest thing is like backing us into a corner where like, okay, sounding the Horn of Gondor is incredibly risky, right? For me as a leader, right? Like if I had sounded the Horn of Gondor at the wrong time, or like you can't cry wolf with that. That is something that you can, that is a big red button that you can only press once, right? And we've only pressed it once. And if it had gone badly, it would have, I don't want to even think about it. It would have ruined my credibility completely. It would have just been very, 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 very bad. If I had asked everybody to come back, it wasn't legitimate. We weren't actually in trouble or things like that. So like, I can't just sound the Horn of Gondor when we're at peace and get people who haven't played the game since 2007 to come back to bail us out, because then they'll say, I spent $15 and reinstalled this damn game. Fuck you, Mittani. Fuck you, Goonswarm. You know,
why did you threaten it? Why did you tell us that we were in trouble and these guys aren't doing anything?
Exactly. So like the fact that these guys have gotten to PTXE and are at a point where I'm like, okay, well, we were now really after 2 months, we're going to sound the Horn of Gondor. Their whole idea about like getting goons to like leave the game and stuff like that, it just doesn't really work out very well, because we were having tons of people come back. And when they come back and people meet their old friends, like, look, 2020 is a shitty year. It is a shitty year. And being able to see old faces that you haven't seen in years and like reconnect with your space buddies from a variety of timelines, basically, and just hang out and shoot the shit, which is what we were doing last night, which is why I'm so ragged. You know, it's just a blast. And it's like one of the few like bright spots and like an otherwise kind of like, you know, very dark timeline. And we couldn't do that. We couldn't sound the horn unless these guys had pressed us to this point, and we did it. And now we're like, okay, we are here. We have the ships. We have the material. We have the ISK. We are ready to have Ragnarok. We are ready to have the battle for the end times. Let's go. And Piggles and Villy are now like, they're up in our grill and they're just doing fucking move ops.
And that's the thing. I mean, look, guys in the chat and some other folks, well, we'd be okay with classing a 1D. Guys, listen, okay? This is a war. When you start a war, we didn't start this war. When you start a war, if you go into the war and you don't know what the victory conditions look like, that is a recipe for Vietnam. It's a recipe for never winning, having no idea what the post-war is supposed to look like. You need to go in and say, this is why we're fighting. These are our objectives. This is how we know when we've won. If you haven't done that, and Piggles and Billy didn't do that, until they started writing their rah-rah bullshit soda speech, and then they picked, first of all, they picked the worst reasoning and rationale for doing the war in the first place. I mean, literally, every single group that has come after the Imperium in the last 10 years has used the same stupid casus belli of, goons are bad for the game, we must destroy them. Bob did it. PanFam did it the last time. These guys are doing it. I mean, could you guys come up with something different? Maybe. But then you set up this impossible to meet. We didn't set up the criteria. We're not the ones saying that this is a war of annihilation and that we have to destroy Test or else we're going to lose. That wasn't us. We didn't say that. We said Test is next. We say we're going to fight as hard as we can and we're going to hurt these guys. But in the end, they have to win this war, and they have made themselves an impossible case to do that because they have set it up that they want this war as a war of annihilation. If we don't die, they don't win. Period. They picked that, not us. So when we say, if you want to kill 1DQ, that's great, go ahead. That's not us herfing and blurfing or changing the goalposts. That is us literally telling you that we're okay with what you guys want to do because we're still going to be here at the end of the war, which is exactly what you don't want and why you started the war in the first place. So if you guys can't kill us, we're going to win, which means we're going to win. And it's impossible for you to win. Get that through your heads. Your own leadership fucked this up from step one. And that's on them.
They truly did.
And I feel bad because you guys are going to, and then the other thing, this is the other, I'll pull the last big quote that's out of this that I want to go through, because if you couple it with the Polygon article, it gives some really solid insight into what this war is really about and why you guys are fighting it. And I'm talking right now, I know we have a lot of Imperium on here. We have 838 people. It's not all Imperium guys. I'm talking to you guys in Legacy, you guys in PanFam. All right, this is the quote. We are going to be immortalized, not just in EVE Online history, but in video game history. And he goes on to talk about if we're going to win this war. I am telling you this right now. The Polygon article, Villy acts like he started this war because he got fired from Goons. We know that's not true. Then we hear, oh, well, it's about our legacy, pun intended, that we're going to try to go in here. We're going to live it. We're going to be immortalized. It's going to be EVE history. Guys, you are fighting a war for the personal aggrandizement of one person. This war is about Villy's ego, and he has telegraphed it so many frickin' times that I don't see how anybody else can't see that. And he doesn't care about you having fun. He doesn't care about you making money. He doesn't care about you getting good fights or anything. All he wants is you to show up so that he can get his name written in a history book that he did something important in EVE Online as an empire builder.
Well, he's going to get written in a history book. That's true. Like there is going to be history written about this. Like we know great wars in EVE Online do get history books, but they are in this awkward situation now where the moment, even like if they lose like 10% more of their forces, like they already can't seem to beat us in US time zone, which is now where our vulnerabilities are going to be. Like they're doing more move ops. So the vulnerabilities are going to be in the dead zone, midnight Eve, right? So like 2100 to 3 o'clock Eve, that's when you guys are going to have to come up. A lot of their guys like took Friday off to get ready for this op yesterday that Piggles stood down. So they're going to have to push the war forward with that crew of FCs, with that crew of leaders, with that crew of strategic geniuses, Piggles and Villy, right? Like I feel pretty good about it, right? Like I'm confident. We're happy if they put Titans in a place that we can drop a bunch of dreads or our Titans on them. We'll do it like we demonstrated last night. It's just, it really is interesting when you think you know somebody to find out that Villy, I was blindsided by him doing the whole I'm fired thing. And it really did, I think, reveal like how much of this is about his ego. And then we saw like he has I was making fun of this on the fireside. He's named his faction Titan. What was it? The jewel of the champion.
The crowned jewel or something.
The jewel, the champion's jewel. The champion's jewel.
CJ is the one that gave him. It's funny because this is the other thing. Like, I don't know. Villy is like, and I hate to say this because it brings real life politics into it, but it's the best analogy I can come up with at 4:45 on the show. Villy is the Donald Trump of EVE. He says stuff that is so obviously easily contradicted. I can't literally in the thread where he says, "Well, this guy gave me this Komodo, so I had to name it after him." And then somebody else later is like, "No, that's not what happened. This is what happened." I mean, it's like, okay, it's just constant saying stuff that's not true. This was the other this was the funny thing. There's another quote from the soda that I linked earlier. There is only Delve left. He had to pause and then he corrected himself and said, well, correction, there is some period basis left. I mean, the guy can't even say a sentence without making a mistake or at least trying to spin. I don't know. You guys give us a hard time because we spin on this show, but that's what we're here for. But I'll tell you, it just, at least when we're spinning, it's it's grounded in some kind of fact. I could say that the sky is blue, and the Praxis truthers will say that the sky must actually be green, and the Mittani has secretly put special augmented reality contacts into everybody's eyes due to a conspiracy. The sky is actually green just because I say it's blue, right? Like I can say the most obvious, true, verifiable things, and these guys will. Actually, here's a funny one. I was going to do this as my my soapbox, but I wasn't feeling the soapbox because we partied too hard with the returnee goons, the Red Vets last night. But I found in one of these stupid ass Reddit threads one of the dumbest things that I've seen that came from like this had nothing to do. It was like in like the Villy Polygon shit show thread, one of them, and there's still some of these what I'm going to call GigX truthers, right? Some of these CO2 guys popped up out of nowhere screaming about how Sion Kumitomo, my former chief of staff who has not played for several years, Sion Kumitomo faked 160 pages of diplomatic records because when CO2 backstabbed the Imperium during the Casino War, we showed that we were actually good allies and they backstabbed us and we're like, hey, they claimed that we treated them badly. So we released
all of our diplomatic records such that everybody could see what CO2 was actually like to deal with them and see whether we had done anything wrong in trying to be the best possible friend and working with them. And there are these praxis truthers, these gigax truthers, like these insane QAnon conspiracy nerds who years later are going, you guys faked these 160 pages of logs, and we can tell that you faked them because there was a colon, and instead there should have been a semicolon, so we can tell that you did a find and replace, and Sion Kubatomo and Marconius Porkbutt did this thing, and I'm like, holy shit, have you guys ever had, like, I can't, I just can't.
All right, so we got 10 minutes left of the show. We still have a ton of stuff to do. We haven't even talked about
ScarCon. We haven't talked about Trigs.
So let's go. We're going to go into subscribers only for our next segment, which is going to be a piercing the
cool kids mode. Cool kids
only mode.
We are here. Cool kids only.
And we're going to do do a quick news roundup, and then we're going to talk about the last thing we want to talk about.
Let's do it.
All right, so we have a lot of Eve stuff that happened this week, and I want to go through at least a couple of these things. First of all, the Depths of the Abyss is now live. That was the new addition of Tier 0 and Tier 6 content to the Abyss. The Tier 6 Abyssal stuff is supposed to be very difficult PvE, and it's also going to provide mutaplasmids that for capitals. So that's I think is going to be interesting to see how that changes the small gang meta, how that's going to change wormhole meta. I don't think it's going to have an impact on fleets, obviously, because you can't set a doctrine where everybody gets the same role on their siege module for their dread, so it's not going to work. So that went live. We have new Abyssal Proving Ground events that are coming up. You can see those on the website. The two things that I wanted to talk about, first of all, is the invasion stuff reaching its zenith, and I think that this is important because it may have an impact on the war. And then the second thing was the Capsular Redemption that that CCP put through. So in terms of the Trig stuff, we've seen an unprecedented email from EdenCom, from Concord, saying the Trigs have taken these systems. We urge you to move all your stuff out. That's never happened before, and I don't know what that means. We've seen in the previous in the teasing that they were going to shut gates down. That hasn't happened yet, but something is going to happen in these systems, and some of them, like for example, ScarCon, which happened to be one of the asset safety systems for a lot of the stuff that the bad guys were losing in Fountain and elsewhere.
Oh my God.
I feel bad for them. They're gonna have to clear that stuff out, or at least they're being told to clear that stuff out, or something's gonna happen, and we don't know what's gonna happen yet. So that I think is interesting and has a potential to disrupt.
Weaponizing the Trig stuff has been like one of my favorite like B plots during this whole war. Like, so we did the Niarja thing. Yeah. So like ScarCon is in Molden Heath, and it is one of the exit points on like the L4X pipe. If you were old school Goon, you remember that one of our superhighways ended in ScarCon. So like it's a major point there. And we kept that quiet. We did send a small group of our incursion squad up there to sort of help push that over. But we didn't really want to make too much noise about it like we did with the Niarja, because one, it could have helped the bads out, and two, we weren't really sure that would make a strategic impact, and maybe it won't. We do know that some of our enemies have been complaining about it, and after it went, this dude popped up and was like, hey, yeah, this really sucks. We hate you, CCP, because if you had been a player in that area, a lot of asset safety went to ScarCon for people who have been hostile to the Imperium living in that area for a while. So I don't know how much stuff is in there. I don't know if it's a problem, but if the bads are complaining about it because of the triangles, I'm a happy man, and I am very pro triangle. So there you go.
Yeah. So we will see what that means, but I think that, a lot, I'll be happy. I like the Trig invasion content. I like the stuff that's disruptive and changes the game. I like the fact that this is something that the players have some agency in. They can go and do, and it has an impact. And then at the end, based on their actions, the game is going to change somehow. I don't know how. We haven't been told. I'm not leaking any CSM stuff because I don't know. I'm pretty sure I missed that meeting. So anyway, there's going to be some stuff that's going to happen. It's going to be cool, I think, and we'll see what the impact is down the road. But for now, we're not sure what it's going to be. The other important thing that happened this week, and I'm going to highlight this because this is something that's near and dear to my heart, for obvious reasons that I won't go into, because you guys already should know. CCP announced a change to their zero tolerance policy for certain types of bad behavior in the game. Now, in September 2018, and this was something that we had worked on, CSM 13 and worked with them on, was this real life harassment and threats policy to kind of refine it. One of the things I never liked about it, and I don't like, and the lawyer part of me really doesn't like, is the idea of zero tolerance. Because in my experience, zero tolerance means zero common sense. It means stupid outcomes that you have no leeway to fix and no leeway to mitigate because you've set this policy and you can't deviate from it. So anytime anybody says we're changing our policy from zero tolerance to a case-by-case basis, I'm going to applaud, because that's the right thing to do. Things like zero tolerance, things like mandatory minimums, they sound good on paper, but in reality, all they do is ensure that whatever justice happens, it's cruel and it's not blind, and it doesn't make sense. So what they said in the policy, and I'll link the article here for you guys, is that they're changing the policy. They're going to allow people who have been banned in the past to petition and have their case reviewed so that they can go back and potentially maybe rejoin the community. Now, obviously, the first thing everybody says when they see this is, oh, free GigX. But they go through and they make it clear that there are certain things that are still strictly prohibited. And that includes the stuff that we want them to ban people for and not let them back in, which is serious targeted harassment, doxing, RMT, extreme racism. And that's not like somebody making a mistake and saying one dumb thing, like somebody like going at it hardcore over and over and over again. Other exploited, like serious in-game exploit abuse, and then the other stuff that's covered by the real life threats policy. So I don't think that we're going to see a flood of the worst bad actors coming back to EVE. But as we saw a couple months ago, there was a guy on Reddit that posted that he had posted the Navy SEAL copy pasta. But don't you know who I am? I've got 77 confirmed kills and da-da-da-da-da.
Obvious joke.
Obvious internet thing that any of us have seen if you've been around for more than 5 minutes. But because of the way the language is, it's a threat. He says he's going to kill you. So GM's hands are tied. This is the policy. They had to ban the guy. Now, they reversed it, and I hope that was probably the genesis of making this change. But in the end, that's the type of stuff we don't want to have happen. You know, EVE is a game. It's a sandbox game. There is room for forgiveness. There is room for there to be some kind of rehabilitation. If people make mistakes and they're contrite and they admit that they messed up and they apologize for it, I think there's a good reason for them to come back, so long as they haven't done something that's so egregious or have such a huge history that it makes it impossible for us to take them at face value when they do that. So I like that. I mean, I'll be honest. I'll tell you, I'm reading this thing, and one of the things that struck out to me was justice without mercy is cruelty. I got to give CCP credit for the Thomas Aquinas quote. I like that. That makes me, as a lawyer, that makes me happy. That's a good quote in there, and that's reality. I mean, that's what we want to see from these guys. So I'm pleased that they did this, and I know that we would rather talk about the war and everything, but when the CCP does good stuff, I'm going to give them an attaboy. This was a good thing that they needed to do. I'm looking forward to seeing if the numbers justify and if we start seeing more people coming in. And I have asked for that on the CSM. I've asked for them to be transparent, give us updates on how this is going and how many people are coming back and those types of things, so we can see if this is making a difference. So anyway, I wanted to get into that. We're kind of up to the end. Is there anything else that you wanted to go
I think that's
through?
about it. I mean, I think I need a nap after running my mouth for like the last 4 hours straight. I've got like a couple of meetings before we have the fireside, and then we have the meta show. And I think I legit, like you guys pointing out that I look tired in chat are correct. I think I partied way too hard. Also, the white balance is off on my webcam, so I look
we're gonna work on that before next show. We got to get him some curtains too.
The bad guys keep fucking standing down. Like they thought they were gonna make a play here. I'm trying to look at like the threat board over here, and like we of course have plans whenever there's a thing that the bad guys could do. We're like trying to prepare for that, and then during the meta show, especially when there are timers coming up, I'm like always like looking over here at Jabber, and it's like, oh, this first timer bad guys stood down because they didn't have enough logistics numbers in fucking Europrime during a move op.
I think it's funny because I'm waiting for these guys to think that they can pull a fast one on the Imperium by doing something, sneaky during the meta show, because you're watching all the stuff that's going on anyway, but our command and control is good enough that they can take care of it for an hour.
Oh yeah, totally.
While we
it's
do
really
a
nice.
show.
Like I can just be
And
like,
I have
I'm
no
gonna go over here.
responsibilities
Yeah.
whatsoever, so it doesn't matter if you guys do it to us. You know, they're out doing stuff anyway while I'm here. So hey, you know.
All right. Well, yeah, I think a nap actually sounds good. We do have Saturday Night Swarm tonight, and I want to party again because love to club.
Bushy-eyed.
Hell yeah. So, yeah, thanks for coming, guys. It's been a fantastic show, and I'm glad that Brisk was in rant mode because I was a little bit, a little tired after watching the bad guys stand down at us for the last couple of days.
You guys don't get me in rant mode very often, so take it when
I know,
you get it. You
I
didn't
love
get
it.
Frank
I
this
love
week,
it.
But you got me in rant mode, so that's almost as good. Anyway, all right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This has been the Meta Show for September 19th, 2020. I am Brisk Ball, joined by the Matani, Pine Cones, Delenda Est. You stay classy, New Eden.
Thanks for coming, guys. See you next week.